I've always existed on the periphery of wealth, close enough to touch it, but never truly part of it. As an event designer in Beverly Hills, I've crafted spaces where the elite celebrate their milestones, while I quietly pack up and return to my modest apartment in Pasadena at the end of each night. My name is Madison Stone, and at 34, I'd made peace with my position in life, the architect of other people's glamour. Growing up with my aunt in a middle-class neighborhood after my parents died, I'd learned to appreciate beauty without needing to possess it. I designed dreamscapes for the wealthy, and that was enough, or so I told myself. Madison, you're here! My cousin Dylan's voice echoed across the gleaming marble foyer of Sterling Blackwell's penthouse. His arms were outstretched, his smile practiced and perfect, like everything else about him. Dylan Grant was everything I wasn't, born to privilege, educated at the finest schools, and perpetually comfortable in rooms where paintings cost more than my annual salary. We shared the same grandmother, but our mothers had made vastly different choices in life. His had married into old money, mine had chosen love over lineage. The place looks incredible, he said, kissing both my cheeks in that affected European way he'd picked up somewhere between Yale and his summer in Monaco. Sterling is going to love what you've done. I nodded, trying not to let my nerves show. This wasn't just another event. This was my breakthrough. Dylan had convinced Sterling Blackwell to let me design his exclusive gala, the unveiling of a legacy investment project meant to honor his late mother, Evelyn. Is he here yet? I asked, adjusting a centerpiece of white orchids and crystalline sculptures that caught the setting sun through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Just arrived, with his father. Dylan lowered his voice. Charles Blackwell himself. Rarely makes public appearances since Evelyn's death. I felt a chill despite the, perfectly regulated temperature. Charles Blackwell was legendary in financial circles, not just for his wealth, but for the silence that surrounded his rise to power and the mysterious circumstances of his wife's death 10 years ago. Remember, Dylan whispered, this isn't just about tonight. If they like your work, the Blackwells could make your career. No more struggling for clients. I wanted to remind him that I didn't struggle for clients. I struggled to be taken seriously by clients like the Blackwells, who saw decorators as servants with taste. But I held my tongue. Dylan had given me this opportunity, and I wouldn't waste it arguing about the dignity of my profession. The elevator doors opened, and the air in the room changed instantly. Sterling Blackwell stepped out first. Tall, lithe, with dark hair and the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having been told no. Behind him came Charles, older, imposing, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they touched. Mr. Blackwell. Dylan glided forward, shaking Sterling's hand firmly. And Mr. Blackwell Sr. What an honor. Sterling smiled, but his father merely nodded. His gaze swept across the room, over my carefully curated decorations, and landed on me. You must be the designer, he said, his voice deep and measured. It wasn't a question. Madison Stone, I replied, extending my hand. His grip was firm but brief. Interesting choice, he said, gesturing to the crystal sculptures. They remind me of something Evelyn once collected. Sterling stepped closer. That's why we hired her father. Madison has an intuitive sense for elegance that Mother would have appreciated. I hadn't known that about Evelyn Blackwell. I'd researched her public appearances and style preferences, but nowhere had I read about crystal collections. It was a lucky coincidence, but I wasn't about to correct them. The guests will be arriving soon, Sterling continued. Dylan, tells me you've arranged something special for the wine service tonight? I nodded. A selection of vintages chosen to complement each course, displayed in the private cellar below. I thought we might offer guided tastings between speeches. Charles Blackwell's expression changed subtly. The cellar is typically off-limits to guests. Father, Sterling interjected smoothly. Madison has created an experience. The sommelier has approved the arrangement. Sophia, Charles said, and it wasn't clear if it was a question or a statement. Yes, I confirmed. Sophia Marcus has been very helpful in selecting the collection. Something passed between father and son, a look I couldn't interpret. Then Charles nodded once. Very well. I look forward to seeing what you've chosen. As they moved away, to greet the first arriving guests, Dylan appeared at my side, champagne flutes in hand. What was that about? I whispered. Old men and their wine cellars. He shrugged. Don't worry about it. Charles is just particular about his collection. You didn't tell me there would be an issue with using the cellar. Because there isn't one. Sterling approved it weeks ago. He handed me the champagne. Relax, Madison. You've earned this moment. Don't let Charles intimidate you. He does that to everyone. I sipped the champagne, feeling the bubbles dance on my tongue. As the room filled with Beverly Hills elite, actors, financiers, politicians, I circulated, making sure everything was perfect. The lighting, the music, the flowers, all designed to create an atmosphere of tasteful opulence. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled into something more complicated than an elegant party. The way Charles had reacted to the mention of the wine cellar, the strange tension between father and son, it felt significant, though I couldn't say why. By 9 o'clock, the penthouse was alive with conversation and laughter. I stood back, watching my creation unfold as planned. This was the moment I lived for as a designer, seeing a space transformed not just by my decorations, but by the energy of the people inhabiting it. "It's magnificent," a quiet voice said beside me. I turned to find Sophia Marquez, the sommelier, elegant in her tailored black suit, her dark hair pulled into a severe bun. "You've captured something essential about this place." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by the compliment. Sophia was famously reserved, a woman who spoke through the wines she selected rather than unnecessary words. "The legacy announcement will begin soon," she said, her eyes tracking Charles across the room. "Will you be joining the toast in the cellar afterward?" "Of course," I said. "I want to make sure everything goes smoothly." Sophia nodded, but something in her expression made me uneasy. "Not everything that seems smooth on the surface is peaceful underneath," she said cryptically, then walked away, leaving me to wonder what she meant. I didn't have time to dwell on it. Sterling was tapping a glass, calling for attention, and the crowd was gathering around him. It was time for the announcement, the reason for this elaborate gathering, and I had no idea that in just a few hours, my life would change forever, because of what waited below in that cellar, hidden inside a bottle that was never meant to be opened. Sterling Blackwell had the room captivated. Standing beneath the custom lighting I'd designed to make him look both powerful and approachable, he spoke about his mother's vision for philanthropy and community investment. The Evelyn Blackwell Legacy Fund would commit $50 million to supporting women in finance, a field his mother had navigated with grace and determination. "My mother believed that wealth carried responsibility," Sterling was saying, his voice rich with practiced emotion. "Tonight, we honor not just her memory, but her vision for a more inclusive financial world." Charles Blackwell stood slightly behind his son, his expression unreadable. He had barely spoken during the presentation, offering only a brief formal statement about his late wife's commitment to excellence. As applause filled the room, I noticed Sophia watching from the back, her face a careful mask. "Brilliant speech," Dylan whispered, appearing at my elbow. "The Blackwells know how to make an announcement feel like a coronation." I nodded, distracted by the strange intensity in Sophia's gaze as she watched the father and son. "Dylan," I asked quietly, "what exactly happened to Evelyn Blackwell? I know she died 10 years ago, but no one ever mentions how." Dylan's smile faltered slightly. "Officially, heart failure. Sudden and unexpected. She was only 48. He sipped his champagne. "Unofficially? Well, Beverly Hills runs on rumors, doesn't it?" "What kind of rumors?" He shrugged. "The usual when a wealthy woman dies young. That she was unhappy. That the marriage wasn't what it seemed. That Charles was controlling." He glanced around, then lowered his voice further. "Some even suggested he might have been involved somehow, but those whispers died quickly. The Blackwell legal team is thorough." Before I could ask more, Charles Blackwell himself approached us. Up close, his eyes were even more penetrating, gray and cold as the Pacific in winter. "Ms. Stone," he said, "the event has exceeded expectations." "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell," I replied, trying to match his formal tone. "I understand you've curated a selection in the cellar. I'm particularly interested in seeing if you've included any Chateau Margaux. Evelyn had a fondness for their 1982 vintage." My heart sank slightly. I hadn't specifically requested that wine, not knowing its significance. "I believe Sophia may have included it," I said, hoping it was true. "Would you like me to check for you?" Something that might have been a smile touched his lips. "That would be appreciated. Perhaps Dylan could go down and confirm. I'd like a private word with you about future events at our Malibu estate." Dylan's eyes widened at the mention of the Malibu property, a legendary clifftop compound rarely open to outsiders. Of course, he said eagerly. I'll go right now. As he hurried away, Charles guided me toward a quieter corner of the room. Your aesthetic sense is remarkable, he said. It reminds me of Evelyn's. She too could transform spaces with subtle touches. That's very kind, I replied, unnerved by the comparison. I admired her public work with the Blackwell Foundation. Yes, he said, his voice flat. The public work. There was something unsettling in the way he emphasized those words, as if Evelyn's public persona had been a creation rather than a reflection of the woman herself. The wine, he continued, is more than just a preference. It was the vintage we drank the night I proposed. Sentimental, perhaps, but I thought it appropriate for tonight's announcement. Of course, I said. Dylan should be back shortly to confirm. Dylan seems to be taking his time, Charles interrupted, checking his watch. Perhaps you should check on him. The cellar can be confusing for first-time visitors. I nodded, relieved for an excuse to end our conversation. I'll do that right away. The elevator to the cellar level required a keycard, which Sophia had provided earlier. As I descended, I felt a strange sense of foreboding. The temperature dropped noticeably as the doors opened onto a dimly lit hallway lined with stone and glass, a stark contrast to the warm opulence above. Dylan? I called, my voice echoing slightly. There was no response. The wine cellar itself was vast, a cathedral to viticulture, with vaulted ceilings and walls of temperature-controlled glass, showcasing bottles worth more than homes. Motion-activated lights illuminated my path as I moved deeper into the space. I found Dylan in the French wine section, staring at an open cabinet with a perplexed expression. There you are, I said. Charles was wondering what was taking so long. I can't find it, he replied, sounding frustrated. Sophia said it would be here, but this section is almost empty. I peered into the cabinet. Only 3 bottles remained on a shelf designed to hold dozens. That's odd. Maybe she moved it for the presentation? Madison. A soft voice came from behind us, causing us both to turn. Sophia stood in the doorway, her posture rigid. I was wondering who had come down. The cellar is not supposed to be accessed until after the announcement. Charles Blackwell asked about a specific wine. I explained. The 1982 Chateau Margaux. He said it had sentimental value. Something flickered in Sophia's eyes. Alarm, perhaps, or resignation. I see. She moved toward a different cabinet, one partially hidden behind a stone column. The Margaux is kept separately, special collection. She unlocked the cabinet with a key from her pocket and carefully removed a single bottle, cradling it like a fragile artifact. The label was faded but still legible. Chateau Margaux, 1982. This is the last bottle, she said quietly. Mr. Blackwell doesn't know I've preserved it. Dylan reached for it. Great. I'll take it up to him now. Sophia pulled the bottle back, her movement almost protective. No, this isn't for opening tonight. But that's exactly what Charles asked for, Dylan insisted, his tone sharpening. Dylan, I interjected, sensing tension. Why don't you go tell Charles we've located it, and Sophia will prepare it properly? It probably needs to breathe or something. Wine protocol wasn't my expertise. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but don't take too long. Charles Blackwell isn't a patient man. He headed toward the elevator, leaving me alone with Sophia and the bottle. As soon as the elevator doors closed, Sophia's demeanor changed. The professional reserve dissolved, replaced by an urgent intensity. Madison, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, you need to listen carefully. This bottle cannot go upstairs. I don't understand, I replied, confused by her sudden change. It's just wine. No. She placed the bottle on a nearby table and turned it slowly, revealing something I hadn't noticed. A slight bulge in the cork, as if something had been inserted alongside it. It's not just wine. There's something inside. A note. A note? From whom? Sophia's eyes met. Mine, dark and serious. From Evelyn Blackwell, written the night she died. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cellar's temperature. How do you know this? Because I helped her hide it. Sophia glanced toward the elevator, as if checking we were truly alone. I was more than the family sommelier. I was Evelyn's friend, perhaps her only real friend in those final months. She knew something was wrong. She was afraid. Afraid of what? Of Charles. Of what he was capable of. Sophia's hand rested protectively on the bottle. She suspected he was poisoning her slowly. Small doses, undetectable individually, but building up in her system. She had proof, financial documents, medical tests she'd had done secretly. She put everything in this note, sealed it, and hid it in the one place she knew would be preserved. I struggled to process what I was hearing. If that's true, why haven't you gone to the police? It's been 10 years. With what evidence? A note that would be dismissed as the paranoid writings of a troubled woman? Against the power of Charles Blackwell? Sophia shook her head. I kept my position to protect this bottle, to wait for the right moment, the right person. And you think I'm that person? Why me? Sophia's gaze was penetrating. Because you ask questions, because you notice things, and because you're not invested in the Blackwell fortune like your cousin is. I looked at the bottle, feeling the weight of its secret. What do you expect me to do? Take it upstairs, she said. Tell them I'm preparing it, but don't let anyone open it yet. Watch them, Charles, Sterling, all of them. Then decide if the truth deserves to be buried for another decade. The elevator hummed, signaling someone's approach. Sophia quickly placed the bottle in my hands. Madison, she whispered urgently. Evelyn believed the truth would come out when it was meant to. Perhaps tonight is that night. The elevator doors opened, revealing Sterling Blackwell. His easy smile faltered slightly when he saw us standing close together, the bottle between us. There you are, he said, his charm slipping back into place. Father's getting impatient. He wants to offer a special toast before the donation announcements. Sophia stepped back, resuming her professional demeanor. Ms. Stone was just asking about the proper service for this particular vintage. I clutched the bottle, feeling the weight of its hidden contents. Yes, I wanted to make sure we did everything correctly. It's such a special wine. Sterling's eyes lingered on the bottle. Indeed it is. Shall we? He gestured toward the elevator. As I stepped inside with him, bottle in hand, Sophia caught my gaze one last time. Her eyes held a question and a challenge. The elevator doors closed, and I stood beside Sterling Blackwell, holding not just a rare wine, but a decade-old secret that could destroy everything around me. In that moment, I realized I had crossed a threshold. I was no longer on the edge of luxury, looking in. I was at its very center, where wealth and power concealed darker truths, and I held one of those truths in my trembling hands. The elevator ascended in silence. Sterling stood beside me, his cologne expensive and subtle, his presence filling the small space. I clutched the bottle tighter, wondering if he could somehow sense what it contained, if he could hear the echo of his mother's voice trapped inside the glass. You seem nervous, Madison, he said, his voice breaking the silence. Is everything all right? I forced a smile. Just want everything to be perfect. It's not every day I design an event for the Blackwells. He studied me for a moment, then his expression softened. You've done a remarkable job. Father doesn't compliment often, so when he does, it means something. The elevator doors opened to the bustling penthouse, and Sterling guided me through the crowd with a light hand on my lower back. I felt the bottle's presence, acutely, heavier than its physical weight, a ticking bomb disguised as a luxury. Charles Blackwell stood near the terrace doors, in conversation with the mayor of Beverly Hills. When he saw us approach, he excused himself with practiced courtesy. Ah, the elusive vintage, he said, his eyes fixed on the bottle. Where was it hidden? Special collection cabinet, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Sophia says it needs to breathe before serving, perhaps during your closing remarks? Charles reached for the bottle, but I maintained my grip, adding quickly. Sophia was quite specific about the handling, something about sediment and temperature. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face, quickly replaced by that same cold smile. Of course, we must respect the expertise of our sommelier. He checked his watch. The final presentations begin in 30 minutes. That should be sufficient time. As he walked away, I felt Sterling watching me. You're very protective of that wine, he observed. It's important to your father, I said carefully, and it's the last bottle. Something shifted in Sterling's expression, a subtle darkening. Yes, the last of many things. He touched the bottle, lightly, his fingers brushing against mine. My mother loved this vintage. Father always said it was their special connection, the taste of their beginnings. There was a note in his voice I couldn't quite identify. Bitterness, perhaps, or skepticism. Did you know your mother well? I asked, the question slipping out before I could consider its propriety. Sterling's eyes met mine, surprised by the personal nature of the inquiry. I thought I did, he said after a pause. But after she died, I realized how much of her remained a mystery. He glanced across the room at his father. Some days I wonder if anyone truly knew her. Even him. Perhaps especially him. Before I could respond, Dylan appeared at my elbow. There you are. Charles is asking about the wine service. What's the plan? His eyes darted to the bottle, then back to my face. It needs to breathe, I said automatically. I'll take it to the service bar and have it decanted. I can do that, Dylan offered, reaching for the bottle. No, I said, too quickly. Both men looked at me with surprise. I mean, Sophia gave me specific instructions. I should handle it personally. Sterling nodded. Let Madison manage it. After all, this is her event. He turned to Dylan. Besides, there's someone I want you to meet, a potential investor for that project you mentioned. Dylan's attention immediately shifted, his ambition outweighing any curiosity about my strange behavior. As they walked away, I made my way to the service bar at the far end of the penthouse, keeping the bottle close. I found a quiet corner and examined it more carefully. The cork did indeed have a slight bulge, just as Sophia had described. I wondered what Evelyn Blackwell's final words might be. What accusations, what truths she had sealed away, believing they would eventually come to light. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? The voice startled me. I turned to find an older woman watching me with intelligent eyes. A vintage like that carries history in every drop. Yes, I agreed, not knowing what else to say. I'm Eleanor Prescott, she said, extending a manicured hand. I was Evelyn's closest friend on the foundation board. I introduced myself, curious about this connection to Evelyn. You must miss her, I ventured. Eleanor's perfectly composed face showed a flicker of genuine emotion. Every day, she was luminous, brilliant in ways Charles never fully appreciated. She nodded toward the bottle. Is that the 82 Margot? I'm surprised Charles is willing to open it. It was the last of Evelyn's personal collection. Did she collect wine? I asked, seizing the opportunity to learn more. Among other things, Evelyn had exquisite taste and a passion for preservation. Eleanor's gaze became distant. She believed some things should be saved, protected from those who wouldn't understand their true value. The way she emphasized those words made me wonder if she knew more than she was saying. Mrs. Prescott, call me Eleanor, dear. Eleanor, I amended. Did you ever feel that something wasn't right? About Evelyn's death, I mean. Her carefully composed expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. What a curious question from an event designer. She studied me for a long moment, then said quietly, Evelyn changed in those final months. She became careful, secretive. She began giving things away, meaningful things, as if she were preparing. She glanced across the room at Charles. But in this world, Madison, certain questions are left unasked, for everyone's safety. With that cryptic statement, she touched my arm lightly and walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers. The evening progressed into its final phase. Guests began moving toward the center of the room, where a small stage had been set up for the closing remarks and the official launch of the Evelyn Blackwell Legacy Fund. Charles and Sterling stood together, the picture of powerful continuity, father and son, past and future of the Blackwell Empire. I remained near the service bar, the bottle still in my possession. Sophia appeared beside me, her expression tense. They'll be looking for it soon, she murmured. Have you decided? Decided what? Whether to let them open it, whether to let the truth remain buried. I looked at the bottle, then across the room at the gathering crowd. I don't know what the truth is, I said honestly. I've heard whispers, suggestions, but nothing concrete. Sophia's dark eyes held mine. The concrete evidence is in your hands, Madison. Evelyn knew what was happening to her. She documented everything, the slow poisoning, the financial fraud, how Charles used her family name to build his empire while systematically breaking her spirit. Her voice remained calm, but I could hear the underlying emotion. She was my friend. I watched her fade away, and I did nothing to stop it. Why didn't you help her leave? Report him? She tried to leave once. Charles made it clear what would happen, not just to her, but to everyone she cared about. Sophia's gaze flickered to Sterling. She stayed to protect her son. She believed he was salvageable, that he wasn't yet his father's creation. Across the room, I saw Charles checking his watch, then scanning the crowd. His eyes found me, narrowed slightly when he saw the bottle still in my hands. "It's time, Madison," Sophia whispered. "Charles is about to make his final toast. He'll want the wine." "What would Evelyn want?" I asked, my heart racing. "Justice," Sophia replied without hesitation. "Truth. She put that note in the bottle believing someday someone would find it and be brave enough to expose what really happened." Charles was making his way toward us now, his expression pleasant but his eyes cold. "Ms. Stone," he said, his voice carrying a hint of impatience. "The wine?" I held the bottle tightly. "It's ready, Mr. Blackwell." "Excellent. Sophia will serve it now as I make the toast." He gestured for Sophia to take the bottle. Our eyes met over the bottle as I passed it to her. Something unspoken passed between us. A question, a decision, a commitment. She nodded almost imperceptibly, then followed Charles toward the center of the room. I watched as Sophia placed the bottle on a silver tray beside elegant crystal glasses. Charles took the stage, tapping a microphone lightly. "Friends, colleagues, distinguished guests," he began, his voice resonant with practiced sincerity. "Tonight we honor not just a legacy, but a vision. My late wife, Evelyn, believed in creating opportunities, in lifting others up." As he spoke about Evelyn's passion for equality and her gentle guidance of the Blackwell philanthropy, I found myself looking around the room. At Sterling, standing tall but somehow hollow beside his father. At Dylan, eager and ambitious in the front row. At Eleanor Prescott, her face a careful mask as she listened to Charles reimagine the woman she had known. And at Sophia, standing beside the wine tray, her hand resting protectively near the bottle that contained Evelyn's final testimony. "And now," Charles was saying, "I would like to propose a toast with a very special vintage, one that held particular meaning for Evelyn and myself." He gestured toward Sophia, who stepped forward with a corkscrew. As she prepared to open the bottle, our eyes met across the room. In that moment, I made my decision. I moved quickly through the crowd, reaching the stage just as Sophia was about to extract the cork. "Wait," I said, my voice louder than I'd intended. Heads turned. Charles looked at me with cold surprise. "I believe," I continued, my heart pounding, "that such a significant toast deserves words from someone outside the family, someone who can speak to Evelyn's broader impact." I stepped onto the stage, aware of the confusion on Charles's face, the tension in Sophia's posture. "Ms. Stone," Charles said smoothly, "while your sentiment is appreciated, this is a family moment." "But isn't that what the Evelyn Blackwell Legacy Fund is about?" I countered. "Extending the family circle, honoring her inclusive vision?" I turned to the crowd, drawing on every ounce of confidence I'd developed as an event designer used to commanding spaces. "I'd like to read something in tribute to Evelyn's spirit of truth and transparency." Before Charles could object further, I took the bottle from Sophia's hands and held it up for the room to see. "This vintage," I said clearly, "represents more than just a shared memory. It represents Evelyn's voice, preserved, like this wine, for the moment when it most needs to be heard." Charles stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "What do you think you're doing?" I met his gaze directly, honoring Evelyn's true legacy, her complete legacy. As we stood there, locked in silent confrontation with the bottle between us, I realized I had crossed a point of no return. Whatever happened next would change everything. For the Blackwells, for Sophia, for Dylan, and for me. The tension on stage was palpable. Charles Blackwell's practiced smile remained fixed, but his eyes had turned to ice. Sterling stepped forward, confusion evident on his face. "Madison?" he questioned, glancing between his father and me. "What's happening?" The elegant crowd watched with a mixture of confusion and the barely disguised hunger for scandal that fuels high society. I could see Dylan in the front row, his expression horrified, silently pleading with me to stop whatever I was doing. I took a deep breath, still holding the bottle. "This wine," I said, addressing the room but looking directly at Sterling, "was your mother's. Truly hers. Not just a vintage she enjoyed, but a bottle she preserved specifically." Charles moved closer, his voice low and controlled. "Ms. Stone, you are making a spectacle of what should be a dignified moment. Please hand me the bottle. I believe it contains something important," I continued, stepping away from his reaching hand. Something Evelyn wanted to be found. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Eleanor Prescott had moved closer to the stage, her eyes alert and focused. "Madison?" Charles said, his tone hardening as he dropped the pretense of politeness. You are an event designer who has clearly overstepped. This is a family matter. Is it? I challenged, finding courage I didn't know I possessed. The Blackwell Foundation is a public entity. The legacy you're celebrating tonight affects many people beyond this family. Shouldn't Evelyn's full voice be part of that? Sophia had stepped back, her face a careful mask, but I could see the slight tremble in her hands. She had waited a decade for this moment, and now I was the one bringing it to fruition, or disaster. Sterling looked between his father and me, his expression unreadable. What exactly are you suggesting is in that bottle, Madison? Before I could answer, Charles interjected. This is absurd. Some decorator trying to create drama for attention. He turned to the security personnel who had begun moving toward the stage. Please escort Ms. Stone from the premises. Wait. Sterling's voice cut through the tension. I want to hear what she has to say. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine. Madison, explain yourself, clearly and quickly. I took a deep breath. Your mother left a message in this bottle. A note, sealed alongside the cork. I believe it contains truths she wanted preserved, about her life, her death, and the foundation you're celebrating tonight. The room had gone completely silent. Even the security guards had paused, waiting for direction. That's preposterous, Charles scoffed. But there was something new in his voice, a hint of uncertainty, perhaps even fear. Evelyn died of heart failure, sudden and tragic. Any suggestion otherwise is not just false, but potentially libelous. Sterling stepped closer to me, his voice low. How could you possibly know what's in this bottle? I glanced at Sophia, who gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Sophia helped your mother preserve this message. She's kept it safe for 10 years, waiting for the right moment. All eyes turned to Sophia, who straightened her shoulders and stepped forward. It's true, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Evelyn was afraid in those final months. She believed she was being poisoned slowly. Systematically, she had gathered evidence, financial records, medical tests she'd had done in secret. Charles's face had hardened into a mask of rage. This is slander. You'll both be sued for everything you have, which, in your cases, isn't much. Open it, Sterling said suddenly, his eyes never leaving the bottle in my hands. If my mother left a message, I want to hear it. The room held its collective breath. I looked at the bottle, then at Charles, whose composure was slipping by the second. This isn't the venue for, he began. Yes, it is, Sterling interrupted. We're here to honor my mother's legacy. If part of that legacy is her own words, I want them heard. With trembling hands, I passed the bottle to Sophia. You should do it, I said. You were her friend. Sophia took the bottle and carefully began working the cork, using a special technique that would preserve whatever had been inserted alongside it. The entire room watched in tense silence as she extracted not just the cork, but a small cylinder of paper that had indeed been hidden inside the neck of the bottle. She unrolled it carefully, revealing several tightly written pages of what appeared to be Evelyn's handwriting. Sterling reached for it, but Sophia hesitated. Your mother wanted this read aloud, she said, so everyone would hear it at once. Sterling nodded, stepping back. Sophia cleared her throat and began to read. To whoever finds this letter, if you're reading this, it means I was right. I was silenced, betrayed, and buried beneath a narrative that erased my voice. But even Charles cannot control everything forever. I write this knowing my time is limited. For months, I have been experiencing symptoms that no doctor can explain. Weakness, hair loss, cognitive confusion, unexplained bruising. 3 separate specialists, consulted in secret, have found elevated levels of arsenic in my system. Levels that can only be explained by deliberate poisoning. Charles has been adding it to my evening tea, the special blend he lovingly prepares for me each night. I've tested it, confirmed it. But by the time I discovered the truth, the damage was too extensive to reverse. Why would he do this? Because I finally discovered the fraud at the heart of the Blackwell Empire. The foundation that bears my family name has been a shell for laundering money from illegal arms deals in restricted markets. My inheritance, the fortune my father built ethically over decades, has been corrupted, used to fund violence and oppression around the world. When I confronted Charles, he made it clear. I could live as his silent, compliant wife, or I could die. Slowly, painfully, along with anyone who tried to help me. I thought of my son, Sterling, who still has a chance to become someone different from his father. I thought of the staff who depend on their positions for survival. so I chose to use my remaining time to gather evidence. Documentation is hidden in 3 locations: behind the 3rd panel of the library, wainscoting in our Malibu home, in safety deposit box number 247 at First Republic Bank, Beverly Hills, access code 11 Auber 2436, and with my attorney Richard Winters, though he doesn't know what he holds. To my son, Sterling, I hope you are not your father's creation. I stayed to protect you, to give you time to find your own moral compass. The choice of who you become now rests with you. To whoever reads this first, I entrust you with my truth. Use it wisely, but use it. Let justice be my final legacy. Evelyn Catherine Blackwell, April 17th, 2015. As Sophia finished reading, the silence in the room was absolute. Then, like a glass shattering on marble, it broke into gasps, murmurs, the sound of phones being raised to capture the moment. Charles Blackwell stood frozen, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. The security personnel looked uncertainly between him and Sterling, unsure whose orders to follow now. Sterling's face had drained of color. He took the letter from Sophia's hands and read it again silently, his expression transforming from shock to grief to a cold, hard anger. "Is this true?" he finally asked, looking directly at his father. Charles had recovered enough to attempt damage control. "This is clearly a forgery. Evelyn was unwell mentally in her final months. Paranoid, delusional. Her doctors confirmed it." "Doctors you selected and paid?" Sophia interjected quietly. Sterling turned to Sophia. "You knew about this for 10 years. You watched me honor him, work alongside him, believe his version of my mother's life and death. Why didn't you come to me sooner?" Sophia's composure finally cracked. "I was afraid," she admitted, tears in her eyes. "Your father made it clear what happens to people who speak against him. I promised your mother I would protect the truth until the right moment arrived." Eleanor Prescott had made her way to the stage. "Sterling," she said, her voice steady, "I believe Sophia and this letter. Evelyn came to me with concerns about Charles's business dealings months before she died. I urged her to leave him, but she was worried about you." "Lies," Charles hissed. "All of it." But his usual authority had evaporated. He looked around the room, at the faces of Beverly Hills elite now recording every moment of his downfall on their phones, and something in him seemed to collapse. In that moment, I realized Sophia had been right. The truth had emerged exactly when it was meant to, in the most public, undeniable way possible. Dylan had pushed his way onto the stage, his face pale. "Madison, what have you done?" he whispered frantically. "Do you have any idea whose career you've just destroyed? Whose lives you've just ruined?" I looked at him steadily. "I revealed the truth, Dylan. That's all." "The truth?" he echoed incredulously. "The truth is that you've just blown up connections that could have made both our careers. The Blackwells were our ticket, and you've just exposed a murderer." I finished for him. "And possibly saved lives." While we spoke, Sterling had moved toward his father. Their conversation was too quiet to hear, but the tension in their bodies was unmistakable. Charles's face had gone from rage to a cold calculation. He reached inside his jacket. For what? I never found out. Because in that moment, 2 police officers pushed through the crowd. "Charles Blackwell?" one of them called. "We need you to come with us." The chaos that followed was both surreal and oddly muted. Charles being led away in handcuffs. Sterling, ashen-faced, consulting with a circle of attorneys who seemed to materialize from the crowd. Guests flowing toward the elevators, eager to be the first to share the scandal with those who weren't present. Sophia stood alone by the wine table, looking somehow both victorious and devastated. I moved to her side. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I've carried this for so long. I don't know who I am without it." "You're the woman who kept a promise," I said, "who honored a friendship even when it was dangerous." Dylan was arguing with Sterling's assistant, gesturing wildly toward me. I caught fragments. Had no idea she would, and completely unauthorized. Sophia touched my arm. "You should leave. This will get uglier before it gets better." "What about you?" She gave me a small, sad smile. "I've said my piece. After 10 years, I can finally rest." As I made my way toward the exit, Eleanor Prescott intercepted me. "That was either very brave or very foolish," she said, studying me intently. "Maybe both," I admitted. She nodded thoughtfully. "Evelyn would have liked you." She pressed a business card into my hand. "When the dust settles, And it will, call me. The foundation will need rebuilding with people who value truth. I slipped the card into my pocket and continued toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a final glimpse of the penthouse, the beautiful space I had designed now, transformed into something else entirely. A crime scene, a revelation, the place where a decade of lies had finally shattered like fine crystal. The weight of the evening pressed against me as the elevator descended. I had entered this building as an event designer, hoping for a career breakthrough. I was leaving as something else entirely. A woman who had changed lives, exposed crimes, and altered the course of a powerful family's history. All because of a bottle of wine and the truth it had preserved, waiting for the right moment to be heard. The next morning, I woke to the persistent buzz of my phone vibrating across my nightstand. The screen was flooded with notifications. Missed calls from Dylan, text messages from colleagues, news alerts with headlines containing the Blackwell name. I switched it to silent and stared at the ceiling of my modest Pasadena apartment, trying to process the events of the previous night. I had gone from anonymous event designer to central figure in what was rapidly becoming Beverly Hills' biggest scandal in decades. My mind kept replaying fragments. Sophia reading Evelyn's letter, Charles's face as his carefully constructed facade crumbled, Sterling's expression, caught between betrayal and revelation. My doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. Cautiously, I approached the door and peered through the peephole. Dylan stood in the hallway, his normally perfect appearance disheveled, his expression thunderous. I opened the door but kept the security chain engaged. "Dylan, let me in, Madison," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "We need to talk." "I don't think that's a good idea." "You destroyed everything last night," he hissed. "Everything I've worked for. My connection to the Blackwells, my business opportunities, my reputation in this town." "I revealed the truth about a woman's murder," I replied, my own anger rising. "I'm sorry if that inconvenienced your networking strategy." "You had no right. You were hired to design an event, not play detective. Do you have any idea what you've done? Charles Blackwell is one of the most powerful men in California. He has connections everywhere: politics, business, entertainment. He'll destroy you. He's also apparently a murderer who's currently in police custody." Dylan laughed bitterly. "You think that matters? Men like Charles don't stay in cells. His lawyers will have him out by noon, and then—" He shook his head. "Madison, I'm trying to help you. Pack a bag. Get out of town for a while. Let this blow over." "I'm not running, Dylan. I didn't do anything wrong. That's not how the world works. You publicly accused one of the wealthiest men in America of murdering his wife. Right or wrong doesn't matter when you're dealing with that kind of power." I studied my cousin's face, the genuine fear beneath his anger. "Are you concerned about me, Dylan, or about how this affects you?" His expression hardened. "We're family. I brought you into this world, vouched for you, and you've tainted both our names." "I think we have different values," I said quietly. "I can't regret exposing the truth, even if it has consequences." "Consequences," he echoed incredulously. "You haven't even begun to understand what those will be." He stepped back. "Don't say I didn't warn you." After he left, I finally gathered the courage to look at my phone. Among the missed calls was one from an unknown number that had called 3 times. As I stared at it, the phone buzzed again. "The same number," I answered cautiously. "Hello? Madison Stone?" A woman's crisp professional voice came through the line. "Yes? This is Andrea Lawson, Mr. Sterling Blackwell's personal assistant. He would like to meet with you today. Privately." My heart raced. "Why?" "Mr. Blackwell didn't share his reasons with me. He asked me to arrange a meeting at a location of your choosing." Her tone softened slightly. "If it helps, I can assure you this isn't confrontational in nature." I considered my options. Refusing seemed unwise. Sterling Blackwell would find me if he wanted to. At least this way I could control the setting. "There's a coffee shop near the Huntington Gardens," I said. "Café Florian. I can be there at noon. Mr. Blackwell will meet you there. He'll be discreet." The morning news was dominated by the Blackwell scandal. As Dylan had predicted, Charles had indeed been released on bail, though with restrictions. The financial markets were responding to the allegations of fraud, with Blackwell Company stocks plummeting. Financial analysts were dissecting Evelyn's claims, finding patterns that supported her accusations of money laundering and illegal arms deals. I arrived at Café Florian 20 minutes early, choosing a table in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance. The cafe was quiet, with just a few patrons scattered among the mismatched vintage tables. I ordered tea and waited, my nerves escalating with each passing minute. Sterling arrived precisely at noon. He was dressed down in jeans and a simple navy sweater, a baseball cap pulled low over his face, a far cry from the polished figure who had commanded the stage the night before. Despite his attempt at anonymity, heads turned as he crossed the cafe. His presence was undeniable, even in disguise. He slid into the chair across from me, removing his sunglasses. Up close, I could see the toll the past 18 hours had taken. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, his jaw tight with tension. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said quietly. I didn't think refusing was an option. A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, or acknowledgement, crossed his face. Fair enough. He ordered coffee when the server approached, then waited until we were alone again. "I'm not here to threaten you if that's what you're thinking." "Then why are you here?" Sterling studied me, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "I want to understand. You were hired to design an event, yet you ended up exposing a decade-old murder and fraud. How did you connect with Sophia? How did you know about the bottle?" I told him the truth, how Sophia had approached me in the cellar, her decision to trust me with Evelyn's secret, my split-second choice to reveal it publicly rather than let it remain hidden. "Why did you do it?" he asked when I finished. "You must have known. The professional consequences. The Blackwell name opens doors in this town and closes them. It was the right thing to do," I said simply. "Your mother deserved justice." Sterling's expression softened slightly. "You didn't know her." "No, but I recognized her voice in that letter, her courage. She stayed to protect you, even knowing what your father was capable of." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "For 10 years, I believed my father's version of her, that she was fragile, emotionally unstable, that her death was tragic but inevitable." His voice hardened. "I worked alongside him, defending his legacy, her supposed legacy. I became his perfect heir." "You couldn't have known," I said gently. "Couldn't I?" His eyes met mine, filled with self-recrimination. There were signs, inconsistencies in his stories, the way certain staff members, Sophia included, would look at me sometimes, like they were waiting for me to realize something. He shook his head. I didn't want to see it. The truth was too monstrous to contemplate. "What happens now?" I asked. "Legally? My father faces serious charges: murder, fraud, money laundering. His lawyers are already constructing a defense, claiming Evelyn was mentally ill, that her letter is the delusion of a troubled mind." Sterling's expression darkened. "But the financial evidence she mentioned, it exists. The police found documents exactly where she said they would be." "And what about you? The foundation? That's actually why I wanted to see you." He leaned forward slightly. "The Blackwell name is toxic now, but the foundation's work is important. Evelyn's true vision, supporting women in finance, creating ethical investment opportunities, deserves to continue." He paused. "Eleanor Prescott suggested you might be the right person to help rebuild it." I stared at him, stunned. "Me? I'm an event designer, not a philanthropic consultant. You're someone who chose truth over convenience, integrity over opportunity." His gaze was steady. "That's exactly what the foundation needs now." Before I could respond, Sterling's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "I have to go. My father's legal team is making statements I need to counter." He stood, then hesitated. "Will you think about it? The foundation position." "I will," I promised, still processing the unexpected offer. He nodded, then added quietly, "Whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm grateful. Not many people would have done what you did." He slipped his sunglasses back on. "My mother would have admired your courage." After he left, I sat alone, trying to make sense of how completely my life had changed in less than 24 hours. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Blackwell Enterprise. Shares continue to plummet amid scandal. The personal and professional repercussions were just beginning. Dylan's warning echoed in my mind. Charles Blackwell would not go down without a fight, and I had placed myself directly in his path. Yet despite the uncertainty, I felt strangely calm. For the first time in my career, I had done something that mattered beyond aesthetics and ambiance. I had given voice to a woman silenced by power and greed. Whatever came next, I would face it knowing I had made the right choice. The Blackwell scandal exploded across media platforms with relentless intensity. Each day brought new revelations as investigators unraveled the complex web of financial fraud Charles had constructed. Business partners distanced themselves. Politicians returned donations. Society friends claimed they had always sensed something off about the man they had fawned over for decades. My name appeared in most reports, sometimes as the courageous event designer who exposed the truth, other times as the party planner who destroyed the Blackwell legacy. Opinion was divided, but anonymity was impossible. Reporters camped outside my apartment building, potential clients, canceled contracts, unwilling to risk association with such controversy. Others reached out specifically because of it, eager to hire the woman who had brought down Charles Blackwell. 1 week after the gala, I received a certified letter from Charles Blackwell's attorneys, informing me I was being sued for defamation, slander, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The damages sought were in the millions, an amount so far beyond my means it seemed almost comical. Almost. Eleanor Prescott called within hours of the letter's arrival. "I heard about the lawsuit," she said without preamble. "Don't panic. It's standard intimidation tactics." "He's suing me for $10 million, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "That seems a bit beyond standard." "Charles is desperate. The criminal investigation is gaining momentum. 3 former Blackwell executives have agreed to testify about the financial fraud in exchange for immunity." She paused. "But he needs a distraction, a way to discredit Evelyn's letter. Making you the villain in his narrative serves that purpose." "What am I supposed to do? I can't afford to fight this." "You don't have to. Sterling and I have arranged legal representation for you, the best defamation attorney in Los Angeles. Charles will drop the suit eventually. It's just theater, but until then, you'll be protected." I was stunned by this unexpected alliance. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because Evelyn would have wanted it," Eleanor said simply. "And because this town needs more people willing to speak uncomfortable truths. Not fewer." She paused. "Have you considered Sterling's offer about the foundation?" "I'm still processing everything," I admitted. "It's been a chaotic week. Take your time, but don't let Charles's intimidation tactics prevent you from moving forward." Her voice softened. "Evelyn spent years paralyzed by fear of that man. Don't give him that power over you too." After we hung up, I sat at my small kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills and canceled contracts. My professional reputation was in tatters, or transformed depending on one's perspective. My cousin wasn't speaking to me. My face had appeared on national news, and now I was being sued by one of the wealthiest men in America. Yet despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to regret what I'd done. My phone rang again. Sophia. We had spoken briefly in the days following the gala, but she had then disappeared. Her number temporarily disconnected. I answered eagerly. "Where are you?" I asked. "Are you okay?" "I'm safe," she replied, her voice sounding calmer than I remembered. "I'm staying with family in Arizona until things settle down. I heard about the lawsuit. News travels fast. Charles is predictable in his vindictiveness." She paused. "I want you to know I'm prepared to testify. About Evelyn's suspicions, about how she created that letter, about my role in preserving it. You won't stand alone against him." "Thank you," I said, genuinely moved. "That means a lot." "Evelyn would be proud of what you did," Sophia continued. "She believed the truth would eventually come out, that someone would be brave, enough to stand against Charles." Her voice caught slightly. "I just wish I had been that person years ago. Maybe she would still be alive." "You preserved her voice," I said gently. "Without you, her truth would have died with her." After we hung up, I made a decision I had been avoiding. I called Sterling Blackwell's assistant and arranged a meeting to discuss the foundation position. Whatever came next, I would face it directly rather than hiding from the storm I had helped create. 2 days later, I sat in the conference room of a downtown law firm that was temporarily housing what remained of the Blackwell Foundation. Sterling entered with Eleanor Prescott and a woman he introduced as Lena Winters, the foundation's legal counsel. "Thank you for coming," Sterling said, his manner formal but not unfriendly. "I understand this is a complicated time for you." "That's one way to put it," I replied, attempting a smile. "My father's lawsuit is a desperate attempt to distract from the criminal investigation," he said directly. "The attorneys we've arranged for your defense believe it will be dismissed relatively quickly. In the meantime," Eleanor added, "we want to discuss transforming the foundation." separating it entirely from the Blackwell name and corporate entities, rebuilding it according to Evelyn's true vision. Lena Winters opened a folder. We're proposing to rename it the Evelyn Catherine Foundation, focusing on 3 areas: supporting women in finance, ethical investment education, and advocacy for victims of domestic financial abuse. A cause few foundations address, Eleanor noted, yet one Evelyn understood intimately. Charles controlled her through financial manipulation long before he began physically harming her. Sterling's expression remained composed, but I could see the pain these revelations caused him. We want to transform my mother's tragedy into something meaningful, he said quietly. Something that helps others escape situations like hers. And you want me involved because? I asked, still confused by my place in this vision. You have a unique perspective, Eleanor explained. You weren't part of Evelyn's world, yet you chose to defend her truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. That combination of outsider insight and moral courage is exactly what this foundation needs during rebuilding. We're not offering you a figurehead position, Sterling added. We want your active involvement in reshaping the foundation's approach, from event strategy to public messaging to program development. I looked between them, these people who had moved in elite circles I had only observed from the periphery. I don't have experience in philanthropy. My background is in event design. Your background is in creating experiences that communicate values, Eleanor corrected. In understanding how environment shapes perception. These are exactly the skills needed to rebuild public trust in this foundation. The offer was more substantial than I had anticipated. A real position with significant influence, not just a symbolic role to counter Charles's narrative. I felt simultaneously flattered and overwhelmed. I'd like some time to consider it, I said finally. This would be a major career change. Of course, Sterling agreed, but don't take too long. We need to move quickly to separate the foundation from the ongoing investigations. As we wrapped up the meeting, Sterling asked if he could speak with me privately. Eleanor and Lena excused themselves, leaving us alone in the conference room. There's something else you should know, he said once the door closed. Something that might affect your decision. He hesitated, then continued. My father has been making calls from wherever he's staying, reaching out to contacts in the event planning world, ensuring you won't find work easily in Los Angeles. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Blacklisting me. Sterling nodded. It's vindictive and probably illegal, but effective in the short term. I thought you should be aware. Why are you telling me this? To pressure me into accepting the foundation position? No. His gaze was direct. I'm telling you because I believe in transparency, something my family has lacked for far too long. You deserve to know what you're facing professionally because of, your choice to reveal my mother's letter. I appreciated his honesty, even as the reality of my situation became clearer. Charles Blackwell was systematically dismantling my career, ensuring that even if his lawsuit failed, my professional future would be compromised. Thank you for telling me, I said finally. Sterling studied me for a moment. You're remarkably calm for someone whose life has been upended. What's the alternative? Falling apart won't change the situation. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You remind me of my mother sometimes. She had that same pragmatic resilience. He stood to leave, then paused. Whatever you decide about the foundation, know that you have allies now. You're not facing my father alone. As I left the building, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Charles Blackwell doesn't forgive. Watch your back. I deleted it, hands shaking slightly, and hailed a cab. The message was clear. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was firmly on the wrong side of a very powerful man. Yet as the taxi wound through downtown traffic, I felt a strange calm settling over me. I had spent my career on the periphery of wealth and power, designing beautiful spaces for people like the Blackwells without ever truly belonging. Now I was at the center of their world, not as a decorator, but as someone who had altered their carefully constructed narrative. The cost was higher than I could have imagined, but so was the purpose. For the first time in my professional life, I wasn't just creating beautiful moments. I was creating meaningful change. That night, I called Sterling's assistant and accepted the foundation position. If Charles Blackwell was determined to destroy my event design career, I would build something new from the ruins, something that honored Evelyn's courage and continued her fight against the abuse of power. The next morning, I woke to another text from an unknown number. This one read simply, "The library at the Malibu house. There's more." My heart raced as I realized the implications. Someone close to the investigation was reaching out. Someone who knew about the evidence Evelyn had hidden in the Blackwell properties. The truth, it seemed, was still unfolding. And somehow, I had become its unlikely guardian. The message about the Malibu House library haunted me. Evelyn's letter had mentioned evidence behind the third panel of the library wainscoting. But according to Sterling, police had already searched and found the documents she described. What more could be there? And who was reaching out to me specifically? I debated whether to tell Sterling about the text. Our newfound alliance was tentative, built on shared purpose rather than trust. As the son of Charles Blackwell, he had spent a lifetime absorbing his father's worldview. Could I be certain where his true loyalties lay? After a sleepless night, I made my decision. I called Sophia. The Malibu house, she said slowly, after I described the message. Yes, Evelyn spent a lot of time there in her final months. She said it was the only Blackwell property that felt truly hers. Do you think there could be something else hidden there? Something the police missed? Sophia was quiet for a moment. Evelyn was methodical. If she hid evidence in multiple locations, she would have had a reason. Different pieces of the puzzle, perhaps. I need to see the library, I said. Is there any way to access the house? Not while it's an active crime scene. She paused. Unless what? Sterling has access. As Evelyn's son, his claim to the property is separate from Charles's legal issues. If he were to invite you, it was a risk, bringing Sterling into this, before knowing what more might be hidden. But I had limited options. I'll talk to him, I decided. The following morning, I met Sterling at the temporary foundation offices. He listened intently as I explained about the text message, his expression revealing nothing. Who else have you told about this? He asked when I finished. Just Sophia. He nodded slightly. Good. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. The Malibu property has been released back to the family. The police believe they've collected all relevant evidence. But what if they missed something? What if there's more to your mother's story? Sterling turned to face me. There's always more to the story, Madison. The question is whether uncovering it helps us move forward or just reopens wounds. Your mother wanted the complete truth known, I reminded him. She went to extraordinary lengths to preserve it. A complex emotion crossed his face. Grief, perhaps, or resignation. Yes, she did. He checked his watch. I have meetings all afternoon, but I can take you to Malibu tomorrow morning. We'll examine the library together. Thank you, I said, relieved but still uncertain of his motivations. He held my gaze. My mother trusted you in a way. By putting that bottle where you would find it. I'm trying to honor that trust. The next morning, Sterling picked me up in a sleek but understated car. We drove along the coast in silence, both lost in our thoughts as the Pacific stretched beside us, vast and indifferent to human dramas. The Blackwell Malibu estate was breathtaking, a modernist structure of glass and stone perched on a cliff, with panoramic ocean views and meticulously landscaped grounds. As Sterling led me through the main entrance, I was struck by how different it felt from the Beverly Hills penthouse. Warmer somehow. More personal. My mother redesigned this place herself, Sterling explained, noticing my reaction. It was her retreat. My father rarely came here. He preferred the penthouse, closer to his business interests. The library was at the back of the house, a stunning room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private cove. Built-in shelves held leather-bound classics and modern first editions. The lower walls featured walnut wainscoting, richly polished and elegantly carved. Third panel, I murmured, recalling Evelyn's letter. I moved along the wall, counting. The police already checked here? Sterling nodded. They found financial records documenting the arms deals my father had concealed, exactly as my mother described. I examined the panel carefully. It had been removed and replaced. Recently, the wood finish didn't quite match the surrounding panels. This was where they found the documents? Yes, a hidden compartment behind the panel. I ran my fingers along the edges, feeling for anything unusual. The craftsmanship was exquisite, the wood smooth beneath my touch. Your anonymous informant said there's more. But where? Sterling joined me, examining the adjacent panels. My mother was precise in her thinking. If she said the third panel, she meant exactly that. I stepped back, looking at the room more holistically. Which way did she count? I moved to the opposite wall. What if we're counting from the wrong starting point? Together, we began a methodical search of the library, counting panels from different corners, checking each one for signs of tampering or hidden compartments. After nearly an hour, we had found nothing. Perhaps the text was mistaken, Sterling suggested, or deliberately misleading. I shook my head, unwilling to give up. The message was specific. There's more. Your mother chose this room for a reason. I stood in the center, turning slowly. What was special about this place to her? Sterling's expression softened. With memory. She read to me here when I was young, before boarding school, before my father decided I needed to focus on business instead of frivolous stories. He moved to a reading nook beneath the windows. We would sit here on Sunday afternoons. I joined him in the nook, which featured a built-in window seat with cushions and small bookshelves on either side. This was her special place. With you, I said quietly. He nodded, a rare vulnerability crossing his face. She called it our story corner, said even when I was grown, I could always find her here. Something clicked in my mind. The third panel, I repeated. What if it's not in the wainscoting at all? What if it's... I knelt down, examining the wooden panels beneath the window seat. They were decorative, matching the wainscoting around the room. Sterling caught my thinking immediately. He helped me remove the cushions, revealing the wooden base of the window seat, divided into 5 decorative panels. 1, 2, 3, he counted, pointing to the middle panel. Together we examined it, finding a nearly invisible seam. Sterling pressed experimentally along the edges until we heard a soft click. The panel loosened. We exchanged a look of anticipation as Sterling carefully lifted it away, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside was a small lacquered box, inlaid with mother of pearl, beautiful and distinctly feminine. I remember this, Sterling said softly. It was her jewelry box, a gift from her grandmother. With reverent care, he lifted the box and placed it on the window seat between us. He hesitated before opening it, as if crossing this threshold would make everything irreversibly real. Whatever's inside, I said gently, it's what your mother wanted found. He nodded and opened the lid. Inside, nestled on dark velvet, was a small digital recorder, several USB drives, and a handwritten note in the same elegant script as the letter from the wine bottle. Sterling unfolded the note with trembling hands and read aloud. My darling Sterling, if you're reading this, you've remembered our special place. The official evidence is behind the third wainscoting panel, where investigators will surely look. But this is for you alone. The recordings contain conversations between your father and his business associates. The drives hold copies of his private files. The complete network of his operations, including names he has protected until now. I need you to understand. Your father's crimes go beyond financial fraud and what he did to me. There are government officials, judges, police commanders, all compromised, all in his debt. This is why I couldn't simply leave or go to the authorities. The system itself was corrupted. I'm entrusting you with this knowledge because I believe in your inherent goodness. You can choose a different path. You can use this to ensure true justice, not just for me, but for everyone harmed by your father's empire. With eternal love, your mother. Sterling set the note down, his face ashen. She knew, he whispered. She knew how extensive it was, how many people were involved. I glanced at the recorder and drives. This goes far, beyond what's already been revealed. This could implicate half of Los Angeles's power structure. Sterling's voice was hollow. Judges who might be presiding over my father's case. Police officials leading the investigation. The magnitude of Evelyn's hidden evidence was staggering. She hadn't just documented Charles's crimes against her, she had mapped his entire corrupt network. What will you do? I asked quietly. Sterling stared at the items, conflict evident in his expression. I don't know. He looked up at me. These could ensure my father never walks free again, but they could also destroy countless lives, careers, families, some who may have been coerced or manipulated by him, or who willingly participated in his crimes. I countered gently. He nodded, acknowledging the point. I need time to think, to decide how to proceed. He carefully returned the items to the box. This can't go through official channels, not until I know who can be trusted. Sterling, I said, choosing my words carefully. Your mother hid this specifically for you to find. She believed in your capacity to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. He met my gaze, his eyes reflecting the weight of his mother's trust. The right thing isn't always clear, Madison. Justice and vengeance can look remarkably similar. As we drove back to Los Angeles, the lacquered box secure in Sterling's briefcase, I wondered about the anonymous texter who had pointed us toward this discovery. Someone who knew the house well enough to know there was more evidence hidden. Someone who had my phone number. The list of possibilities was short and troubling. "The foundation meeting tomorrow," Sterling said as we neared the city, breaking our long silence. "I think we should proceed as planned. Continue building Evelyn's legacy while I figure out what to do about—" He gestured toward his briefcase. "Agreed," I said. "But Sterling, whoever sent me that text knows about the hidden evidence. They wanted us to find it, which means we need to be careful," he finished. "Very careful about who we trust." As he dropped me at my apartment, he paused before I could exit the car. "Madison, if anything happens, if anyone contacts you again, call me immediately, no matter the time." His concern seemed genuine, but as I watched his car disappear into traffic, I couldn't help wondering what decisions he would make about his mother's final revelations. Would he protect his father's powerful associates? Or would he expose the entire corrupt system, regardless of the consequences? I thought of Evelyn, methodically collecting evidence while being slowly poisoned, hiding the truth in places only her son would think to look. Her courage was extraordinary, but so was her faith in Sterling, a faith I wasn't yet sure was justified. My phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number. "Did you find it?" I showed the screen to no one, then deleted the message without responding. Whatever came next, I was now irrevocably entangled in the Blackwell legacy, not just its public face, but its darkest secrets. The following week unfolded in a strange pattern of normalcy and tension. By day, I worked with Eleanor and Sterling to restructure the foundation, developing new programs and messaging that would honor Evelyn's true values. By night, I lay awake, wondering about the evidence hidden in Sterling's briefcase and the identity of my anonymous texter. Sterling had become increasingly distant since our discovery in Malibu. He attended meetings, made decisions, expressed appropriate enthusiasm for the foundation's new direction. But something had changed. A guardedness had crept into his manner, particularly around me. "Have you noticed Sterling seems different?" I asked Eleanor one afternoon as we reviewed potential office spaces for the renamed foundation. She glanced up from the floor plans spread across the conference table. "Different how?" "Distracted. Remote." I hesitated. "As if he's keeping something from us." Eleanor studied me thoughtfully. "Sterling is in an impossible position, Madison. His father, a man he both loved and feared, stands accused of murdering his mother. The family fortune is frozen pending investigation. The Blackwell name, which has been his identity since birth, is now synonymous with corruption." She sighed. "I'd be concerned if he wasn't showing signs of strain." I nodded, accepting her explanation while still harboring doubts. I hadn't told Eleanor about our discovery in Malibu or the text messages. Sterling had asked for discretion, and until I understood his intentions regarding the additional evidence, that seemed wisest. Charles Blackwell's criminal case was proceeding slowly, with his legal team filing motion after motion to delay trial proceedings. His lawsuit against me, however, was moving forward with aggressive speed. Despite the excellent attorney Eleanor had arranged, the legal pressure was relentless. Depositions, discovery requests, demands for every communication I'd ever had regarding the Blackwells. Dylan had been served with a subpoena to testify about my premeditated plan to defame Charles Blackwell. He called me, furious and frightened. "I'm not going down with you, Madison," he warned. "I'll tell them exactly what happened, that you went rogue, that this whole scene at the gala was your idea alone." "That's the truth," I reminded him. "I never claimed you were involved. But now I'm involved. My name is on legal documents. My reputation is being questioned. All because you couldn't just do your job and leave the family politics alone." His anger was understandable, if short-sighted. Dylan had always prioritized professional advancement over moral considerations. Exposing a murderer was laudable in the abstract, but inconvenient when it affected his networking opportunities. "I'm sorry you've been dragged into this," I said, meaning it. "But I can't. Regret revealing the truth about Evelyn's death," he scoffed. "The truth, as if you care about some dead socialite you never met. You saw an opportunity for attention and took it." His words stung more than I wanted to admit. "That's not fair, Dylan." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" His voice rose. "I gave you the biggest opportunity of your career, and you used it to satisfy some heroic fantasy. Was it worth it? Your business is ruined. Your reputation is either trash or treacherous, depending who you ask. And now you're what? Playing charity director for the son of the man you helped in prison? After he hung up, I sat in my apartment, the weight of his accusations pressing against me. Was there truth in what he'd said? Had some part of me acted out of a desire for significance, rather than pure moral conviction? I had entered the Blackwell orbit as a decorator and emerged as a central figure in a scandalous drama. The transformation was undeniably dramatic. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Time running out, S making deals. Ask about the judge. I stared at the cryptic message, my unease growing. If S referred to Sterling, what deals was he making? And which judge? I needed to know who was sending these messages. I called the number, but it went straight to voicemail. A generic automated greeting with no personal identification. I left no message. That evening, I attended a small dinner at Eleanor's Bel Air home, a strategic gathering of potential donors for the rebranded foundation. Sterling arrived late, offering a brief apology about legal matters before smoothly assuming his role as the charismatic face of the organization. I watched him throughout the evening, noting the practiced ease with which he navigated conversations, the perfect balance of charm and gravity he projected when discussing his mother's legacy. He was masterful, every inch Charles Blackwell's son, despite now standing in opposition to him. As the Yali event wound down, I managed to catch him alone in Eleanor's garden. We need to talk, I said quietly. About Malibu. About what we found. His expression remained pleasant, but his eyes turned guarded. Not here. Then when? It's been a week, Sterling. What have you done with the evidence? He glanced around, ensuring we weren't overheard. I'm handling it carefully. These are powerful people, implicated in those files. That's exactly why they need to be exposed, I insisted. Your mother documented a network of corruption. Justice isn't just about your father. It's about the entire system that protected him. Sterling's composure slipped slightly. You think I don't know that? My mother was murdered while that system looked the other way, but rushing this could compromise everything. The criminal case against my father, the foundation's future, possibly even our safety. I studied his face, trying to discern his true intentions. I've been getting texts, I admitted, from someone who knew about the evidence in Malibu. Today they mentioned you making deals. And a judge. His expression darkened. Who's sending these messages? I don't know. The number is untraceable. But they seem to have inside information. Sterling ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of genuine agitation. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Too many people in the shadows. Too many agendas at play. He lowered his voice further. Yes, I've been approached about deals. By my father's attorneys, by business associates trying to protect themselves, by law enforcement, officials who want to use the evidence to build larger cases. And the judge? He hesitated. Judge Raymond Harlow is presiding over my father's criminal case. His name appears in my mother's files. Not directly implicated, but connected to people who are. There are suggestions of influence. My mind raced with implications. If the judge in your father's case is compromised, then the entire proceeding could be manipulated, Sterling finished. Which is why I've been careful about how and when to introduce this new evidence. Have you shown it to anyone? I've consulted with a trusted federal prosecutor, someone outside the local power structure. We're developing a strategy. I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. Sterling, your mother entrusted you with this evidence because she believed in your commitment to justice. Not expedience, not strategy, justice. His expression hardened slightly. Don't presume to interpret my mother's intentions, Madison. You didn't know her. I did. He checked his watch. I need to get back to the guests. As he walked away, I noticed Eleanor watching our exchange from the terrace, her expression thoughtful. Later, as guests were departing, she approached me. Trouble in paradise? She asked lightly, though her eyes were serious. Just foundation details, I lied. Eleanor's gaze was penetrating. Madison, I've known Sterling since he was a boy. He has his father's intelligence and his mother's heart. But he's been shaped by both of them in ways even he doesn't fully understand. Meaning? Meaning Sterling believes in justice, but he's been raised in a world where power negotiates with power, where principles are flexible depending on circumstances. She sipped her wine. If you're counting on him to be the moral compass in this situation, you may be disappointed. Her insight was unsettling. Do you trust him? I trust that he wants to do right by his mother's memory, she said carefully. Beyond that, she shrugged delicately. We're all complex creatures, shaped by our histories. As I drove home through the quiet streets of Bel Air, Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. I had placed enormous faith in Sterling's integrity, based largely on his status as Evelyn's son. But he was also Charles's son, raised in a world of power, manipulation, and moral compromise. When I reached my apartment, another text waited. Tomorrow, noon, Evelyn's bench at the Huntington Gardens. Come alone. The Huntington Gardens, a sprawling botanical estate in Pasadena, open to the public but quiet and refined. I hadn't known Evelyn had a special bench there, but it made sense she would have frequented the gardens, perhaps finding peace among the carefully tended landscapes. I considered alerting Sterling but hesitated. If he was indeed making deals to protect some of the powerful figures in his mother's files, warning him might jeopardize my chance to learn the truth. For the first time since the night of the gala, I felt truly alone with the weight of Evelyn's legacy. I had acted decisively then, choosing truth over caution. Now, the path forward was murkier, the distinctions between allies and adversaries, increasingly blurred. Tomorrow at noon, I would meet my mysterious informant. I would finally learn who had been guiding me through the shadows of the Blackwell family secrets, and why they had chosen me as their conduit for truth. As I prepared for bed, a final text arrived. Trust no one connected to the family, not even the son. I stared at the words until my screen went dark, the warning lingering in my mind like a premonition. In my quest to honor Evelyn Blackwell's courage, I had ventured into dangerous waters. Power, wealth, corruption, forces that had already proven deadly once, were swirling around me, and I was swimming among them without knowing which current might pull me under. The Huntington Gardens were serene on that Wednesday afternoon, paths winding through meticulously, maintained botanical collections, visitors speaking in hushed tones as if in a cathedral of nature. I'd arrived early, giving myself time to locate Evelyn's bench, without knowing its exact position. I found it in the Shakespeare Garden, a secluded spot beneath the dappled shade of an ancient oak, overlooking a small pond dotted with water lilies. A discreet brass plaque on the bench read, in appreciation of Evelyn Catherine Blackwell, whose quiet generosity helped preserve these gardens for future generations. The inscription felt poignant now, knowing how Evelyn's true voice had been silenced during her life. I sat, watching the garden visitors stroll past, wondering which might be my mysterious informant. At precisely noon, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses approached, seating herself beside me without acknowledgement. She kept her face forward, looking out at the pond. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. The voice was familiar, though I couldn't immediately place it. She was elegant, perhaps in her 60s, with the poised bearing of someone accustomed to wealth. "You're the one who's been texting me," I said. "The one who told me about the evidence in Malibu." She nodded slightly. I knew Evelyn well, better than most. She removed her sunglasses, turning to face me directly. We served on several boards together. Recognition dawned. "Mrs. Prescott, Eleanor." Eleanor Prescott offered a small, sad smile. "I apologize for the cloak and dagger approach, but I needed to be certain of your intentions before revealing myself." My mind raced to make sense of this revelation. "You've been guiding me all along? The text about the wine bottle at the gala, that was you too?" "No," she said, replacing her sunglasses. "That was Sophia. She and I have been working together for years, trying to find a way to bring Charles to justice while protecting Evelyn's legacy. And Sterling. Why not tell me directly? Why all the secrecy?" Eleanor sighed. "Because the web Charles has woven is vast and intricate. I needed to be certain you weren't compromised. By ambition, by fear, or by Sterling himself." "You don't trust Sterling?" I asked, though her message last night had suggested as much. "I love Sterling like a son," she said carefully. "But he is a product of his upbringing. Charles was a monstrous husband, but a masterful father, grooming Sterling to see the world as he does, where power justifies any action, where moral principles are merely tools to manage public perception." I thought of Sterling's careful handling of the evidence we'd found, his talk of strategy and proper timing. "You think he's protecting some of the people implicated in Evelyn's files?" "I know he is." Eleanor's voice was firm. "Judge Harlow is his godfather, a man who bounced Sterling on his knee as a child. The district attorney overseeing Charles's prosecution was his father's golfing partner for 20 years. Sterling may want justice for his mother, but his definition of justice allows for selective application." My heart sank. I had placed so much faith in Sterling's integrity, in his commitment to his mother's truth. How can you be sure? Because I've been monitoring his actions. After you found the evidence in Malibu, he made copies of the files, then edited what he shared with the federal prosecutor. She reached into her handbag and withdrew a slim USB drive. This contains the complete files, unedited. Evelyn sent me copies as well, as insurance. I stared at the drive. Why show this to me? Why not take it to the authorities yourself? Because Evelyn trusted you. Eleanor's expression softened. She didn't choose that wine bottle by accident, Madison. Sophia told her about you months before the gala, about your reputation for integrity, your position outside the corrupt circles of influence. Evelyn believed someone like you, someone untainted by power, would be needed when the truth finally emerged. The revelation staggered me. Evelyn knew about me before she died? That's impossible. She died 10 years ago. Eleanor shook her head. Evelyn knew her time was limited. She and Sophia identified several potential allies, people of integrity who might eventually move in Blackwell circles but weren't beholden to them. You were on that list. Sophia has followed your career since, waiting for the right moment. I struggled to process this information. So that night at the gala was the culmination of a decade-long plan, Eleanor confirmed. Sophia recognized the opportunity when you were hired as the event designer. She suggested the wine service in the cellar to create a private moment to tell you about the bottle. My entire understanding of recent events shifted. What I had seen as spontaneous courage on my part had actually been the final phase of Evelyn's meticulously orchestrated justice. And now? I asked, looking at the USB drive. Now we complete what Evelyn started. Eleanor placed the drive in my hand, closing my fingers around it. Sterling will continue to protect certain powerful figures, out of loyalty, out of calculation, perhaps even out of a misguided sense of mercy. But the complete truth must emerge. What am I supposed to do with this? Take it to Helen Chen, Eleanor said. She's a federal prosecutor with the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, incorruptible and completely outside the local power structure. I've arranged a meeting for you this afternoon. She handed me a business card with an address and time written on the back. I felt the weight of the USB drive in my palm, heavier than its physical presence, a burden of truth and consequence. Sterling will know I betrayed his confidence. Yes, Eleanor acknowledged, and Charles's allies will know you've become an even greater threat. That's why arrangements have been made for your protection after the meeting. A temporary relocation until the indictments are announced. Indictments? Plural? At least, 17 high-ranking officials based on what's in those files. Judges, police commanders, politicians, regulatory officials. Eleanor's expression was grim. Charles didn't just build a fortune, he built a system designed to protect it. That system must be dismantled for justice to truly be served. As we sat in the peaceful garden, the magnitude of what she was asking settled over me. I would be upending lives, careers, families, exposing corruption on a scale I had barely imagined, and I would be doing it alone, without Sterling's support or protection. What about the foundation? I asked. Everything we've been building to honor Evelyn's legacy? That work will continue, Eleanor assured me. Perhaps with a different structure, different leadership, but Evelyn's true legacy isn't a foundation. It's truth, justice, the courage to stand against powerful men who believe themselves untouchable. I looked down at the USB drive, then back at Eleanor. Did you know? I asked quietly. While she was being poisoned, did you suspect? Pain crossed her face. I knew something was wrong. I urged her to leave Charles, to go public with her suspicions about his business dealings. But she insisted on gathering concrete evidence first. She swallowed hard. By the time she had enough, it was too late. The poison had done too much damage. I'm sorry, I said, seeing the grief she still carried. You lost your friend. And now I have a chance to fulfill my promise to her. Eleanor stood, adjusting her hat. The meeting with Helen Chen is at 3. A car will be waiting outside your apartment at 2:30. Pack only what you absolutely need. You'll be provided with essentials at the safe location. As she prepared to leave, I asked the question that had been nagging at me. Why didn't you expose the truth yourself? Why wait all these years? Eleanor's smile was sad but resolute, because Evelyn understood something crucial about power. Those who wield it recognize others who seek it. They watch for ambition, for calculation. but they often overlook those they consider decorative or peripheral. She gestured to me. The event designer, the foundation consultant, the society wife. We move through their world unseen, until we choose to be seen. She touched my shoulder briefly. Evelyn believed in you, Madison Stone. Now I do too. As I watched her walk away, disappearing. Among the garden paths, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The path forward was clear, even if it was dangerous. I would take Evelyn's evidence to Helen Chen. I would ensure the complete truth was finally revealed, and I would accept whatever consequences came with that choice. My phone buzzed with a text from Sterling. Emergency Foundation meeting at 2 p.m. Need you there. I stared at the message, wondering if he somehow knew about my meeting with Eleanor. About the USB drive now securely in my pocket. I texted back. Can't make it. Deadline with the website designers. His response came quickly. Reschedule. This is critical. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked slowly through the gardens, savoring their beauty and peace before stepping back into the storm that awaited me. I had entered the Blackwell world as a designer of beautiful spaces. I would leave it as something else entirely, a conduit for buried truths, a voice for a woman's silence too soon. At 2:30, as Eleanor had promised, a car waited outside my apartment building. The driver, a serious woman in a dark suit, opened the door without speaking. As I slid into the back seat, my phone rang. Sterling. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever explanation or justification he might offer, whatever deals he had made with his conscience, I had made my choice. I would honor Evelyn's trust completely, not selectively. I would ensure that justice extended to everyone implicated in her files, not just those Sterling deemed expendable. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying me toward my meeting with Helen Chen, and toward whatever future awaited on the other side of the complete truth. The federal indictments came down like summer thunder, sudden, deafening, and leaving a changed landscape in their wake. 17 officials were charged with crimes ranging from bribery to obstruction of justice. Judge Raymond Harlow, the Los Angeles County District Attorney, 3 city council members, the police. Commissioner. Charles Blackwell's personal network of protection and influence, meticulously documented in Evelyn's files, was exposed to public scrutiny. I watched it unfold from a federal safe house in Northern California, where I had been living for 3 weeks under the protection of U.S. Marshals. My name appeared in news reports as a key witness who provided crucial evidence. My phone had been surrendered, my social media accounts suspended. I existed in a strange limbo, neither fully present in the world nor entirely removed from it. Helen Chen, the federal prosecutor Eleanor had connected me with, visited twice to update me on the case's progress. She was exactly as Eleanor had described, brilliant, incorruptible, and utterly focused on justice. Charles Blackwell is facing additional charges based on the new evidence, she told me during her second visit. The case against him is airtight now. And Sterling? I asked, the question that had been haunting me. Helen's expression remained neutral. Mr. Blackwell Jr. has been cooperative since the indictments were announced. He claims he was planning to submit the complete files himself, but was proceeding cautiously, due to concerns about witness tampering. Do you believe him? It doesn't matter what I believe, she replied pragmatically. What matters is that he's now publicly committed to supporting the prosecution, including testifying against his father if necessary. I wondered if Sterling's cooperation was genuine or simply a calculated response to changing circumstances. Once the complete files were in federal hands, protecting his father's associates became impossible. Perhaps he was simply adapting, as the Blackwells had always done. When can I go home? I asked. Soon, Helen promised. We've secured most of the witnesses and evidence. The threat level has decreased significantly. A week later, I was escorted back to Los Angeles, returning to an apartment that felt simultaneously familiar and foreign after my absence. My career as an event designer was effectively over. No one in elite circles would hire the woman who had exposed their peers. But my work with the foundation continued, albeit in a significantly altered form. Eleanor had assumed interim leadership during my absence. Under her guidance, the organization had been renamed the Evelyn Catherine Truth Foundation, with a mission focused specifically on supporting whistleblowers and victims of financial abuse by powerful partners. It seems fitting, she explained when we met at her home, where security had been enhanced. Evelyn's legacy isn't just philanthropy, it's courage in the face of overwhelming power. Has Sterling been involved? I asked, the question I'd been avoiding. Eleanor's expression was measured. He resigned from the board after the indictments. Publicly, he supports our mission. Privately, she shrugged slightly. He's navigating complicated waters. Many of his father's former associates view him with suspicion, wondering what he knew and when. Others are approaching him as the new power in the Blackwell Empire, now that Charles is facing life imprisonment. And what do you think of him? I think Sterling is his mother's son in his ideals, but his father's son in his methods. She sighed. He wants justice, but on his terms, with his hands on the controls. I nodded, understanding the complexity of Sterling's position. Has he asked about me? Frequently, Eleanor confirmed. He knows you're back in Los Angeles. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. New number provided by the Marshal's service. The screen displayed Sterling's name. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Are you going to answer? After a moment's hesitation, I did. Hello, Sterling. Madison. His voice was calm, controlled. Welcome back. I'd like to meet. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please. A note of genuine emotion cracked through his composed exterior. I need to explain. And to thank you. I glanced at Eleanor, who nodded slightly. Neutral ground, I said. The Japanese garden at the Huntington. Tomorrow at 11. I'll be there. After I hung up, Eleanor studied me thoughtfully. Be careful, Madison. Sterling is in survival mode now, recalibrating, repositioning. I know, I said, but I need to hear what he has to say. The following morning dawned clear and bright. The Japanese garden was peaceful, the air fragrant with blooming wisteria. I arrived early, selecting a bench overlooking the koi pond, remembering another garden meeting just weeks earlier that had changed everything. Sterling appeared precisely at 11, dressed casually but impeccably as always. He looked thinner, the strain of recent events evident in the new lines around his eyes. He sat beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. Thank you for coming, he said simply. You said you wanted to explain, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. He gazed out at the pond, gathering his thoughts. I told myself I was being strategic, he began. That selective justice was better than none. That protecting certain people who had been kind to me, who had known me since childhood, was a form of mercy, while sacrificing others. He nodded, accepting the criticism. Yes, I convinced myself I was making necessary compromises, that my mother would understand. He turned to me, his expression raw with a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. But she wouldn't have, would she? That's why she entrusted her evidence to multiple people. She knew I might falter. She believed in you, I said gently. But she also understood the world you were raised in, a world of deal-making and selective morality. Sterling's laugh was hollow, Charles Blackwell's true legacy. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the koi glide beneath the surface of the pond, flashes of orange and white in the clear water. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Sterling said eventually. What I did, attempting to protect Harlow and the others, betrayed my mother's courage. I know that now. What will you do? I asked. With the Blackwell Enterprises? With your future? Rebuild, but differently. There are legitimate parts of the business that can be salvaged, redirected toward ethical purposes. His gaze was direct, unflinching. I'm selling the Malibu house and the penthouse. 2. Many ghosts. I nodded, understanding his need for a clean break from spaces tainted by deception. And the foundation? I asked. It's in good hands with you and Eleanor, he said. I'll support it financially, but remain at a distance. My name would only complicate its mission now. We talked for another hour, about the ongoing prosecutions, about Sophia's return to Los Angeles to testify, about the future of the foundation. Throughout our conversation, I sensed a genuine transformation in Sterling. The calculated charm had been replaced by something more authentic, a hard-won wisdom forged in the crucible of public and private reckoning. As we prepared to leave, Sterling asked the question I had been anticipating. Do you regret it? Getting involved with my family, exposing all of this? I considered carefully before answering. I regret the pain it caused. To you, to others caught in the crossfire. But revealing your mother's truth? No, I'll never regret that. He nodded slowly. She would have liked you, you know. Not just for your courage, but for your clarity. She spent years lost in the fog of my father's manipulation before finding her way back to her own moral compass. From everything I've learned about her, Evelyn Blackwell was extraordinary, I said. It's been an honor to carry her voice forward. As we walked toward the garden exit, Sterling stopped suddenly. I almost forgot. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet pouch. This belonged to my mother. Eleanor thought you should have it. I opened the pouch to find a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a miniature wine bottle crafted in crystal and silver. She collected wine-themed jewelry, Sterling explained. This was her favorite piece. She always said the bottle represented potential, that something as simple as glass could preserve something precious, keep it safe until it was ready to be shared. I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, touched by the symbolism. Thank you. We parted ways at the garden entrance, Sterling toward his waiting car, me toward the public parking lot. Our paths would likely cross again through the foundation, but something had been resolved between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Recognition of our different roles in Evelyn's posthumous justice. 6 months later, the Evelyn Catherine Truth Foundation opened its permanent headquarters in a renovated historic building downtown. Eleanor served as board chair, while I directed our programs supporting women trapped in financially abusive relationships. Sophia joined us as outreach coordinator, using her quiet strength to connect with women still living in the shadows of powerful men. Charles Blackwell was convicted on all counts, including first-degree murder. He would spend the remainder of his life in prison, his empire dismantled, his influence extinguished. The officials implicated in Evelyn's files faced their own reckonings. Some convicted, others accepting plea deals in exchange for testimony, all removed from positions of power. Sterling kept his distance from the foundation as promised, though he remained its primary financial supporter. He sold most of the Blackwell properties and restructured the legitimate businesses under a new corporate name. Occasionally, I would see him at public events, our interactions cordial but brief. He was building his own legacy now, separate from both his parents' shadows. Dylan eventually reached out, his initial anger having cooled to reluctant respect. You did the right thing, he admitted over coffee. One afternoon. I wouldn't have had the courage. It wasn't courage, I told him honestly. It was simply the inability to choose anything else in that moment. On the anniversary of the gala that had changed everything, I visited Evelyn's bench at the Huntington Gardens. The brass plaque had been updated with a new inscription. In honor of Evelyn Catherine Blackwell, whose courage transcended silence and whose truth transformed justice. I sat in the dappled sunlight, the silver bracelet cool against my wrist, and thought about voices preserved in unlikely vessels. A wine bottle, a hidden recorder, a woman presumed decorative rather than dangerous. I thought about Evelyn's meticulous planning, her faith that truth would eventually find its way to the surface, carried by hands she would never know. My phone chimed with a text from Helen Chen. Final sentencing today for Harlow. Justice complete. I smiled at the message, then turned off my phone. The garden was peaceful, visitors strolling along the paths, pausing to admire the flowers or the play of light on water. A normal day, unmarked by drama or revelation. Yet beneath the surface of this ordinary moment ran currents of extraordinary consequence, lives transformed, systems reformed, buried truths finally brought into the light. I touched the tiny silver bottle charm on my bracelet, thinking of Evelyn's perfect metaphor. Some vessels appear fragile, glass, silver, the voice of a woman's society underestimated. But they can preserve what matters most, keeping it safe until the world is ready to receive it. In my case, it had been the truth about power and its abuses, about courage and its costs. For others who would come to the foundation seeking help, it might be different truths, different courages, but the principle remained the same. What seems decorative may actually be the strongest vessel of all. As I left the garden that afternoon, I felt Evelyn's presence, not as a ghost, but as a legacy continued. Her voice had been preserved in a bottle of rare wine, waiting for the right moment to be heard. Now mine had joined with hers, along with Sophia's and Eleanor's, creating something new and powerful from the fragments of what had been broken. In a world where silence is the currency of power, sometimes the loudest justice is a whisper finally heard.